Thanks for tuning in to the Teen Sports Podcast Network, where teens throughout the U.S. and their show guests tackle today's sports topics and issues from a teen perspective. And now, here's your host of the Teen Sports Podcast Network, Illinois, Andrew Kish.
Thank you for tuning in to the Teen Sports Podcast Network, Illinois. I'm your host, Andrew Kish. In today's episode, my guest is Jaime Rivera, president and founder of the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy and the Teen Sports Podcast Network. Thanks for taking the time to be my guest today, Jaime.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Super excited to have you here today, Jaime. We got a lot to talk about today. Later in today's episode, we're going to be talking about NIL, name, image, and likeness. Should student athletes be able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness? But before we get into all of that, I want to learn more about you, Jaime, and not just you, also the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy and the Teen Sports Podcast Network. But, before I go on a big tangent, this entire program is based on sports. So my first question for you here today is, when did your passion for sports initially develop?
Well, it'd be hard to tell by looking at what you're seeing today on your screen that at one time I was an athlete. I grew up loving American football, and then one day I saw second floor window house that we lived in as a kid. Looked out the window and I saw these two, kids my age, never seen before, and they were kicking the ball around. And back in those days, a soccer ball was black and white kind of patterns. Of course, today you see those spectacular, beautiful soccer balls today, but I saw them banging their heads against, the ball, smashing it with their head, trapping it with their chest, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that? And I'm seeing this going on, and I'm saying, but they mean to do this, and they seem to like it. So I was so enthralled and so intrigued. Of course, I had to go outside and introduce myself. Come to find out, two Italian twins had just moved from Italy, and didn't know a word of English. I didn't know any Italian, but they taught me the beautiful game of soccer. And had a long career playing in high school, middle school, high school, college, and even after college. And so ever since then, I've maintained this desire and competitive juice to be around sports. So it all started with soccer, but boy, I'm a real sports fan across the spectrum, frankly, today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What an incredible story on how you got into your passion as well. My next question for you, though, is when did it transition from just enjoying soccer to wanting to make it part of your career? What triggered your passion for youth sports broadcasting?
Well, that's a good question. One night I was watching ESPN, and I thought to myself, this is at the time, we're based here in Miami, Florida, and at the time in Orlando, I was watching ESPN. I thought, is there any kind of TV programming, any TV broadcasting for kids to have the experience on a local level to be television reporters covering sports stories on location? And I got to think, I'm not seeing that in my market anyway. And, I'm that mad scientist, and I thought, why not? Why not create a proposal that I went in and met with a local TV station? I had no clue what I was doing, but I sure gave the impression that I did. And after a presentation, half an hour later, we were shaking hands. And that was the beginning of me thinking, this is what I want to do. I've been around youth for a long time. I've been a coach, a sports administrator. And I thought, transitioning into a broadcasting field, why not? And that rest is history.
That's awesome. So, you just mentioned that you were a coach and you've always been around youth. So you were always kind of like a mentor. But how did the transition from just having a TV show to founding a sports broadcasting academy come about?
Good question. We had a weekly show, by the way, had sponsors, phenomenal experience. It was called the Youth Sports Network. It aired in Central Florida market. And each show, of course, we announced that if you were in high school and you were interested in participating in this project of ours, send in your information. We would simply respond by saying, hey, we have a shoot coming up. Show up, give them a shot at what they sounded like and how they looked. And what we decided to do with all those inquiries, actually, because those people, parents and kids, were asking, how can they learn about sports broadcasting? Where can they go locally? And that's when it triggered in my mind a teaching opportunity. I thought, hey, maybe we should transition from a TV broadcast to creating some kind of academy program online where I would just have people in the sports business, sports broadcasting professionals buy into it. And that was the beginning. That was the transition from the TV show to a teaching opportunity for these kids online.
Yeah. So, as one of those kids, I couldn't imagine being able to interact with some professionals in the industry, especially when I'm passionate about said industry. So for someone like you who's passionate in sport, I bet that was an amazing feeling as well. So when you were founding the Academy, what was it like interacting with these professionals from the industry?
Well, first let me back up and say what was really refreshing for me is to find young people who were living in the real world, so to speak, as well as their parents, knowing that their kid probably wasn't going to get a college scholarship, and much less get ever reach the professional ranks, the big leagues. So, I really felt, and I thought there was so many talented kids off the soccer field, off the basketball court, off the football field that were thinking like me, how could they, begin early planning for a career close to the action. So, that was me knowing that there's plenty of parents out there that the kid wasn't going to be the next LeBron James or the fabulous Carly Lloyd, legendary. She's recently retired from the women's U.S. national soccer team. And but as far as working with the professionals, I'm an inner city ghetto Puerto Rican kid. And if you look back at my history on a professional level, I have no right to be in this business. I have no training, no education, no experience. But what I do have is a postdoctoral degree in passion and execution and vision and putting pieces together and people together. Because, it's easy to create ideas and concepts. But in business, the challenge is to execute. And a bigger challenge in business, not just to execute, is also to keep it operational. In other words, don't go under too soon. So I found that working with these professionals, they didn't care about my background. Most never even cared to ask. They just knew that this was a wholesome concept. It was fun for them to want to teach. They blew me away when I would reach out to them and almost across the board, sure, man, I'd like to get involved with this. I never expected that. And it continues to be to this day where these professionals really have a heart to pass on, to give back, and to pay forward, so to speak. Some of the most classiest, unbelievably talented but humble people in any business I've ever worked in or worked for, but with these sports broadcasting professionals. I can't say enough about working with these people and how they figured the important thing was the kids, not me. And I really can't say enough about how the parents and the kids have bought into this, knowing that it's about the teachers who are the ones that are passing along this training. Certainly not me. I was, like I said, the point guy, the visionary, putting it all together. But great experience with these professionals, and continues to be to this very day.
That's incredible. As a student myself, hearing some of the professionals that would love to help the youth. That's incredible. That's an accomplishment on its own. But YSN's been around for a while now, so I'm assuming there's been a lot of great things you've done. And I'm curious, what are some of your proudest accomplishments in the history of YSN?
Very, very good question, Andrew. That's a good one. Because as I said earlier, I'm this mad scientist. I'm one of those that send out emails at 3:00 in the morning. When people blame people for doing that, they have people like me in mind. I was able to create an opportunity, long story short, to have a show with two of our high school kids at the time, only 10th graders, 15-year-old kids, local high school there in Orlando, for the YSN show with Scott and Ryan at the ESPN Club at Disney.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. And talk about mad scientists having the courage to, put feelers out there and have no fear of rejection. That turned into something that, even though I think back, I reminisce really the amazing thing that we pulled off. So it was a weekly show, aired prime time before a live studio audience, not just in the U.S., but also throughout stations in Canada that picked up the radio broadcast. And then we also had professionals that flew in from all over the country to be on the set for the show before the studio audience. Incredible experience. Now, when you talk about accomplishments, that led to another idea that I had, and that was to create a movie concept.
Oh.
Yeah, man. And entitle it The Scott and Ryan Story. Because the accomplishment was really one that some pros in the business say, Jaime, come on, man. How do you pull that off, man? I've been in this business for all these years, waiting for a big gig, for my moment. And you're telling me you have two 15-year-old kids that have a live show before a studio audience, airing U.S. and Canada, with people flying to be on the set as guests, incredible. So the accomplishment really was the culmination of an incredible story of these two young men that I had the pleasure and incredible honor to work with, and their parents. And leading up to this show is, for me, what creates a great storyline for a movie concept. I'm not trying to be the next, who's the biggest name in Hollywood, producer, director, name escapes me right now. Anyway, I'm not trying to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to have a film in the film festivals. I'm not trying to get it on TV. I'm not trying to do anything other to create a short movie that eventually we can send to these high schools, thousands of high schools throughout U.S. and Canada, for free, power the internet, and make it so it fits within any standard time frame of a high school class, but also have an educational component, has some academic value to it, so that the teachers could use it as a lesson one day in their classes. So I'm really thrilled about that concept. It hasn't been accomplished yet because of COVID. Unfortunately, man, just like a lot of other operations, businesses, and plans, COVID just threw our plan off track. The next step was simply to have auditions, but we'll pick that up. Once we get past this thing, we'll pick it up and produce this movie and distribute it. As far as an accomplishment, I humbly say that I actually wrote the script myself. I became a quick study.
Nice.
Yeah, man. I became a quick study. I went online. I started to learn how to write scripts. I got some consultation. And the reason why I wrote and I thought I could get away with it is because it was a true story. I mean, all I had to do is kind of recollect things as they happened chronologically and just follow the rules of script writing. But, and I don't know if you know this, but most movies, when you ever hear based on true events or based on a true story, probably 10-15% of it is true. The rest is dramatic for ratings, But because it's all a true story, probably 95% of the script actually happened. Yeah. So talk about accomplishments and ideas. Get back to that mad scientist thing.
Always, yeah. That's super cool to hear about, though. That's something I can't wait to see myself. Back to the thing you said earlier, being a mentor. That's awesome. That not only are you creating something super cool for people to enjoy and watch, but it's also got an educational value to the youth of this industry. So I think that's super, super cool.
Let me add here too that a lot of young people that go through our program are probably not going to end up in the business, but we're also going to be introducing a professional development component, which gives kids the idea of knowing that their products, and they have to learn how to sell their products, because we're actually in a very competitive world. So
absolutely.
Some parents have even said, because we've had a version of this on the online class that we had, parents were saying, some of the stuff I wish I learned in high school. So I'm thrilled about the professional development component, which gives young people the tools and I believe a tremendous edge versus their peers when they get to the point where they have to start competing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, you clearly you have a lot of great plans for the future of YSN. What you had just mentioned there. But for the overarching idea, what is your vision for the future of the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy?
Very, very good question, because we're soon going to be announcing the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy Masterclass. The difference between the online interactive weekly class that we've had, that program we're putting on hold because we're really focusing on a masterclass, which is on demand, a masterclass that people will be able to register for this program and take it anytime, anywhere at their leisure, which is the trend. A lot of these programs and opportunities, educational opportunities, becoming automated. So we're moving along with that trend, and we'll be announcing the masterclass very, very soon as well.
It sounds like you have a lot of great ideas for the future of the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy. What we're doing right now here today, the Teen Sports Podcast Network, is something new as well when it comes to the fruits of YSN. How did you come up with the concept of the Teen Sports Podcast Network?
Sure. Well, I do know that anybody can have a podcast anywhere, anytime nowadays.
Yeah.
But I got to thinking, how about having high school kids that are interested in talking about sports, not just youth sports. The Teen Sports Podcast Network is not a network covering teen sports. It's not a source to come get your late, breaking news. This is teens covering sports, whether it's, high school, college, or pro. So, I thought, how about creating a network where there's benefits, where kids are not really freestyling and trying to figure this whole concept out, but all kinds of benefits where, by the way, going to our website, those benefits are outlined there. Kids will have that support. Two of the big things that we provide is professional sports broadcasters and other sports personalities, and that you might even see on national television, maybe regional and local, as guests. So part of the program is that benefit of us providing not only guests for the shows, but the other thing is giving young people a whole list of topics and issues that in current sports that they can talk to or talk with their guests as they call in to be on the show. The website outlines the many topics that we provide, but once a student is officially accepted into the network, they receive supporting documents supporting information on each topic to give them a foundation of how to approach the conversation in a podcast. So those are two exciting benefits of the program. But in terms of why that particular project, well, because I've learned myself, that you got to get on the air in this business.
Yeah.
I've learned through my experience, in particular, one that comes to mind. I took one of our high school students at the time and a parent to meet with a dear friend of mine who's on a broadcast team with the Orlando Magic, private tour, great teaching moment in that kind of environment for parenting the kids. One of the things that he said was, in real estate, there's three things, Andrew, that they tell you that you need. Best location, right? Best location, right?
Yeah.
And then this broadcaster said, in this business, you need three things. The first one is get on the air. The second thing is get on the air. And what do you think the third thing is?
Well, based on the current trends, I'm going to have to go with get on the air.
What? Bingo. If I was there, I'd give you a gold star right on your forehead. Well, actually, the size of my forehead, you can give me a big one. A big star.
Goodness.
Yeah. So, I thought, why not create this program where kids don't have to leave home, parents don't have to drive them anywhere. They have an opportunity to be a part of a professional youth network that, again, is part of the resume that they'll have as they continue to pursue this career path, if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I could say from my experience so far as part of the students in the Teen Sports Podcast Network, it's been nothing but great. But moving forward, though, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So I want to know what are your plans? What is your future vision of the Teen Sports Podcast Network?
Man, you asked some good questions.
Thank you.
Man, did you do your homework?
Just a little bit.
Well, first of all, let me ask you this.
Okay.
How big is sports in the U.S.?
It's probably one of the biggest entertainment mediums in the entirety of the country.
How big is sports worldwide?
I mean, you could argue that sports is a bigger factor in people's lives outside of the U.S.
Especially when it comes to soccer.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, something people always talk about how big football is in the U.S., but if you look at soccer at anywhere else in the world, you realize how small football is in the entire spectrum of sports.
Yeah. So, all right, so we established that sports is big in the U.S. Yeah. It's big worldwide. How many teams are there throughout the world? You're right?
A lot, yeah.
So aren't there kids in other countries that are thinking, hey, I'm not going to be the next Dirk Nowitzki in Germany.
Yeah.
But, they love to launch a career in this field, right?
Yeah.
And then here's the third thing. Is the internet only in the U.S.?
No, it is not.
So it's worldwide.
Yeah.
Actually, if I could, I'd do this from the moon because I'm sure the internet is really good up there,
I'm not too sure.
Well, being closer to those satellites. Anyway, so where do you think I'm going with that? See, if there's sports is big worldwide, teams are everywhere in this world, and internet is worldwide. Where do you think I'm going with that?
Well, yeah, no, I already can see where you're going, and I completely agree. The market worldwide would be ginormous.
Right. Yeah. So, I have to stay focused on where I'm at today. Mm-hmm. And I also have to keep an eye on that target of these things that I have in mind. People like me, we live in two worlds simultaneously. We know exactly where we're at today, I know where I have to be and what I need to do right after this podcast. But every
Yeah.
day I'm working toward, those targets that I'm aiming for. So there's a saying, you have a plan and you work the plan step by step.
I completely agree. I mean, it sounds like you got a lot of things planned out there. So now that I have you here, you got any other big secret things planned up for the future of YSN and TSPN?
Well, I'm not surprised you would ask that question. But actually, I have a couple other things up my sleeve, but I don't want to divulge those. Those are just in my notes and in this cranium, because it's really important to stay focused and not be spread out too thin. So, I'm going to leave it with those things we just did talk about. But hey, one or two of those other things I have up my sleeve, you might be one of the first to know about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I've learned so much about you, YSN, TSPN. There's a lot of great things unraveled here. But I don't want to, but I'm going to have to kind of cut this part short because we are reaching about the halfway point of our episode here. So up next, we're going to be talking about NIL, name, image, and likeness trends. Should student athletes be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness? But before we do that, we'll be right back after this short message.
You're in high school, serious about your future, and have a real desire to be near the action. Hi, Andrew Monaco, voice of the Texas A&M Aggies here. If you have an interest in a sports broadcasting career, the YSN Masterclass for high school students is your ticket. An online, on-demand series of video lessons conducted by sports industry professionals ready to help fast-track your sports broadcasting career. Learn more and register today at ysnacademy.com, ysnacademy.com.
Welcome back to the Teen Sports Podcast Network, Illinois. I'm your host, Andrew Kish. Today, my guest is Jaime Rivera, president and founder of the YSN Sports Broadcasting Academy and the Teen Sports Podcast Network, Illinois. We're on the second half of our show today, so we are talking about NIL, name, image, and likeness trends. Should student athletes be able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness? I have a lot of thoughts on this, but before I go on a big tangent, Jaime, I want to get your opinion on this matter.
Okay. Wow, that's a big one. It's new.
Mm-hmm.
It's complex.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what all that means really is I haven't made a conclusion yet how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I'm kind of in a similar boat.
I'm not a sit on the fence kind of guy, but at this point I still am. So
no, I get that.
Yeah, but you know what? It's your show, buddy. You know what I'd like to do first? I'd like to pick your brains. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of opinions on the matter. A lot of different things come to mind. It's there's pros, there's cons, there's good things, there's bad things. But it's not all about money either. One thing always people think about, we shouldn't be making teenagers and young adults millionaires, but it's not just about the money too. There's a lot of people who have to give up hobbies. There's a lot of kids who, need extra cash in college. And, a lot of people could say, they're getting a full ride scholarship. They don't have to pay a penny for books and college dorms and all this stuff. But, you don't have time for anything else. When you're a student athlete, your job is to be a student athlete. You become a product of that school.
Well, let me interject here and tell you that I had a job in my 4 years of college for about a month.
Really?
I couldn't do it, man. The hours in the classroom, the hours studying, the term papers, the assignments, the final exams, and then you throw in all the hours for training and travel and the games.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, and I also, toward the end of my career, I ran track. I didn't have any money, dude, and times have really changed because you see, I went to school back in the olden days.
The olden days.
Yeah, and Even if I had $100 a month,
Mhm.
you know what that would mean for me, especially, pizza means a lot to college kids late night, and,
Yeah.
there were times I missed getting to the dining center. And I remember there were
Mhm.
plenty of times, man, I'm pounding on the door, let me in, I'm hungry. But doors are shut, they're locked
Mhm.
up for the night. So, I think back when I was an athlete, could I have used something that I was able to generate from my ability and commitment of playing, for the school? Um, so, I mean, it's complicated. It's a real complicated issue. Being in business today,
Mhm.
here's how I think, and this is just one perspective, and it's
Yeah.
not a conclusion.
Mhm.
Uh, hey, man, we live in a free enterprise, capitalistic society we choose to live in, dog eat dog, unfortunately, so to speak.
Yeah.
And anybody has an opportunity to make money, why not?
Yeah,
Who's
I agree.
who's to say?
Absolutely.
Anyway, enough of my rant. Go ahead. Tell me what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily because people automatically think of professional athletes in like, the NBA, MLB, NFL, that, they're all millionaires. Am I saying college athletes should all be paid millions and millions of dollars? No. Should colleges pay their students to go to their school? No. But what's wrong with somebody profiting off of themselves? And I think this change, like this name, image, and likeness rule change recently, couldn't have worked even like 10 years ago. And there's one main factor that causes all of that, and that is social media. Um, so you look back at the '90s commercials that had athletes in it. It was your big name people. You had Michael Jordan. I mean, today you got people like Tom Brady. If you're not into sports, you're gonna know who that is just because of how big they are. But college sports is more of it's a much smaller market than the NFL, NBA, MLB, um, and there's not many big name college athletes that you say their name and everybody in the world knows who they are. I mean, there's been a few exceptions. Back in high school, LeBron James, people know who knew who that was. I mean, before he got into the NBA, everybody knew who Zion Williamson is. A lot of basketball analogies, but it's true. Um, and back in the '90s, if you were to grab some random person from an NCAA team, you couldn't put them on a commercial for Gatorade, for McDonald's, because it wouldn't do anything. It would just be like getting a regular actor, and you'd have to pay them extra because of all the things they do. A popular commercial a lot of people think of is that the old McDonald's Larry Bird, Michael Jordan playing horse commercial. That's iconic, but that's because of their notoriety, not notoriety, but how famous they were. Um, and you don't really get that with college athletes. So back then, there was no real benefit to big name companies throwing all this money at college athletes. But now that there's social media, advertising is completely changed. I mean, I'm a big basketball fan, if you can't tell. But I guarantee you pick every single NCAA player out who plays basketball, I wouldn't be able to name half of them because there's so many people who just don't reach that spectrum, even for like big fans. But there are those people, and they all follow them on social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. The list goes on. And with all of those followers, they add up, and that's views that companies can pay those people to post. Oh, go drink this drink, or go buy this shoe, or wear this T-shirt. And there's going to be dedicated people who love that athlete or know that athlete and are going to do what they say. And that's where the possibility of making money has come from social media. That's
Okay.
just one of my takes on the whole situation.
Okay. Now, wait. I'm going to take a shot at this.
Okay.
Let me guess that if you had to choose yay or nay for this concept, you're leaning toward, hey, you're okay with it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. So that being said, Andrew, where do you draw the line between professionalism and amateurism?
Well, see, that's a touchy subject there, because where's the line drawn anymore? Because the technical definition of a pro athlete is somebody who makes money for playing sports, right?
And has an employer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, if you're let's say you're a high school athlete, right? And you're in a local town of like 10,000 people. There, you don't have an audience, but you have Instagram, you have Twitter, and you got a couple thousand followers just from friends and stuff. I mean, I'm a small guy. I got 2,000 followers on Instagram, and some small companies in a local town will say, that's an audience, and I'm willing to pay money for that. So let's say there's a kid, he's playing football for his school. This local shoe company goes, hey, if you wear our shoes in your games and you make some posts on Instagram about it, we'll give you $500. So he's got an employer. He's doing something for this company, and he's doing it while playing sports. Does that make him a professional athlete?
Yeah.
So yeah, the line is very thin in today's day and age, and that goes back to what I was saying before. Social media has changed the game.
Yeah. Imagine if LeBron James social media was big back then, because I don't know if you know this, but I believe when he was a junior in high school, I believe only 16 years old, many people were saying that he was ready for the NBA.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were saying he was ready. There was even speculation even younger than that with how crazy good he was at his age.
I mean, and then, imagine if there was, if he had the opportunity back then to profit off as his name, image, and or likeness. The kid could be probably would have been a millionaire potentially before he stepped foot on a college campus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he wouldn't even have had to, because LeBron went straight from high school to the NBA because that was allowed at the time. But that guy would have been a millionaire before even being a professional athlete. But again, to what your question before, is he a pro before then or not? Because he's making millions. It's weird to think about. But I don't. The amateurism is kind of gone to a certain extent.
But let me pick up on what you mentioned earlier, which we should highlight, and that is the whole door opening for corruption, because there's already colleges and universities that violate the rules, and there's penalties, and they have to pay the cost, whether it's dollar fines, whether it's scholarships. The list goes on and on what the potential fines could be for these schools from the athletic associations. But, money changes people.
Absolutely.
Money makes people do things they probably normally would have done. So are we opening up a real can of worms that 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we're going to either be saying, boy, we made a big mistake. We've opened up, we've got ourselves a real problem here. This has gotten out of control. We've opened up a can of worms. Now, the flip side of that, and I often say, opening up a can of worms is not always a bad thing. Hey, a fisherman needs bait. You think he's going to be happy if he left his can of worms back home?
No, I don't think he would be.
So he doesn't want to leave his can of worms at home. He wants to make sure that he remembers to bring them on his fishing trip so he can pull in some fish. So, like we were talking about earlier, there's advantages and disadvantages. There's all kinds of things that you can use to justify the rationale, the right that these student athletes have, because these schools and these associations are making billions of dollars. But there's also the downside and all the things that come with these choices that only time will tell whether or not it was the right choice at that time. 3 or 4 years later down the road, we can say, hey, no, we handled it right. Who knows? Schools made the right decisions, because from what I understand, I don't know if this is what you understand, schools will have an impact on some of this. In other words, their athlete won't be able to endorse or promote an alcoholic beverage. Or any tobacco products, or sports betting. That's a big thing coming, right? With the NFL out there with sports betting. Also, I mean, sexually oriented products. You know, from what I understand, schools are going to have some role in deciding in the decision making process for their athletes to do some of these things. But appearing in ads, you know, I don't have a real problem with that. An autograph, I don't mind paying kid $10 if he thinks an autograph is worth that, just to help him buy his pizza. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with what you said about schools having a right to stop these things. And, you know, then again, that kind of negates the ability of corruption. Obviously, there's going to be loopholes in every situation. But that's why I think this trend is kind of a good thing, because, you know, schools are putting limits to this thing to make it not completely wrong and affecting these students in a negative way. But, you know, it's money, and like you had said earlier, money can change people. But again, it's not all about money. There's a lot of players who've been in situations where they lose things because of these previous rules. I mean, one person that automatically comes to mind is Donald De La Haye, the YouTuber, Destroying on YouTube. He started off, he was a kicker playing college football, and he lost his scholarship because of a YouTube channel. He was put in a situation where he had to choose between one or the other, and he chose his YouTube channel. He only had about 90,000 subscribers, but he had around 5 million views, and he was making a little bit of money. But I mean, it's fact that kid was making this money and sending it back home to his family, and he lost his scholarship because of that. But you know, I mean, hey, he believed in it and he kept doing it, and you know, now he's stuck with content creation, and he's got 3.25 million subscribers on YouTube. Just YouTube alone, all social media, he's got around 6 million plus followers, and he's got like 550 million views on YouTube. So he's doing fine. But what about the other people who were small channel? Because he was a small channel when he started. But let's say there's somebody else who's making videos to not only just have fun, but help out family, or people who just do it for just strictly fun. Or do they have to lose their scholarship? I mean, that, in my opinion, that's a little ridiculous, you know?
Well, yeah, the other thing that comes to mind with these young people getting into sad situations is somebody came to town, some scout, some coach, and took them out for pizza, and then the kid loses their whole scholarship. You've heard of those stories, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, because I know there's people in the NBA now. I remember seeing tweets. I don't remember the exact player, but he tweeted at the NCAA when they made the ruling, "I want my $40 back for the dinner when I went to go meet with my agent." Like, they was the small things that affected players. I mean, against these rules, if they're out there secretly making millions and doing contracts, that's one thing. They're breaking rules, but I mean, obviously rules are rules, but there's got to be some leniency, because it's not all about money. A great example I have is a personal friend of mine. Back in high school, he ran cross country, and he was fast and he's talented. Ended up going D1. I'm going to leave him unnamed. I'm going to leave the school unnamed because, you know, I don't want to do anything there. But long story short, he was a super talented kid. He ran. He was doing great in school, but that wasn't his whole life. He had another passion. The kid loved to sing, and he was good at it too. I remember all throughout high school, he was always talking about different musicians and this stuff. It was a real important factor of his life. And when he went to college, he decided, you know, alongside doing all that, I want to start making music. But because of the name, image, and likeness rules at the time, he was not allowed to make music with his name under it, whether he's making money or not, because he was uploading it to Spotify. You know, Spotify is a business. There's money involved. So even though he wasn't making a penny, he was doing it because he was passionate about it. He couldn't share it with anybody. His friends, family, they weren't allowed to know about it. So he had to come up with a secret name, and he made music unrelated. Like, we couldn't share it anywhere. He just made the music. And, you know, recently these rules changed, And I remember that when it happened, this is how myself and everybody else found out. He made this big emotional post on Instagram about how for the past few years, he's been making music. And because of these dumb rules, he couldn't share it with his friends, even though it was something he was so proud of. And so he's like, this guy, this is me. And this is my music I've been making that I haven't been able to tell you guys about.
Wow.
And still, he's not making money off of it, but now he can share it because of these rule changes. It's not all about the money, you know?
Sure.
I just think that's a super incredible story to like bring up in this whole topic, you know?
Man, that is I guess there's a lot of food for thought in that story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, in my old age, those are issues I don't have to deal with anymore. My playing days are long gone. But it's, I think, an issue it's here, and I think it's an issue to stay.
Yeah.
Because of the, frankly, the capitalistic society that we live in.
Yeah.
I just hope that these young kids don't really get hurt in the long run, because adults are really making a lot of these decisions.
Yeah.
There's even some momentum. We touched upon this a little bit with LeBron James. This whole name, image, and likeness thing for student athletes to profit is not just for college athletes. It's starting to go down into the high school levels as well. Where these high school kids are in a position to make a ton of money, because there's a fair number of these high school kids that go right straight to the pros, as you know.
Yeah.
And there's a whole line of those in baseball, a whole group of those in basketball, and base. I would say football, but there's a young kid in high school that's a man amongst boys. Someone is going to say, "Hey, I got money. Let me invest in this kid, because this kid's going to make me money."
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm excited in one way to see how this goes. There's a lot of kids that are suffering, families that are suffering while they're in school. So there's going to be a lot of good that'll come out of it, potentially, for kids that are coming from lower socioeconomic levels in our society.
Absolutely.
But then we just got to know that it's ripe for potential abuse and corruption like we've never known before. So anyway, in my very unqualified position, these are my thoughts. I think you brought up some very good thoughts as well, Andrew, that I haven't thought about. So good stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's one other thing that people seem to throw under the rug all the time, and you kind of alluded to it there. There's people who have, low-income families, and there's those athletes that train their entire lives to get out of those situations and to help their family. And one thing that I always think about when name, image, and likeness comes up is, what about those athletes that don't go pro? There's people who train their entire lives. They're in a horrible situation. They have a bad home life. They're in not good neighborhoods, and they're just trying to take care of themselves and their family because they know they're talented. And trust me, there's hundreds of college athletes that there's not a single other person in the world besides the pros that could beat them. They're unbelievably talented. But there's only 300-something people in the NBA, and there's only 60 replaced every year. There is a very slim chance that people will get into the pros. And what do they get from dedicating their entire lives to one sport and not being able to make a penny off of it?
Man, great perspective. You nailed it. You're absolutely right, because you think, these college coaches are making millions and millions of dollars every year. And then and all the benefits that come along with it, not just the paycheck. But you have these kids that have dedicated so much. Let's say if they went 1, 2, 3, or even 4 years to help that coach get that W. week in
Yeah.
and week out, year in and year out. So, the W translates into what for the coaches,
More money.
and the kid doesn't go on to anywhere else beyond college to earn a living playing the sport they love. So the kid was, in a sense, used.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's a lot of college athletes there, and it could be unfair to say to some, but there's some aren't, in like academically the most talented people in the world because their talents and their life focus has been the sport that they play. So after they get out of college, if they don't go pro, they're in a situation where they're kind of stuck where they started. And not to mention the suffering they had to go through college. I mean, you had mentioned how you struggled to be able to get a pizza at times with how much time you had dedicated and how little money you had. Imagine those kids who came into college, they got their full ride, they got a college education, but they go back to a home where they're scrapping for pennies. It's not fair, in my opinion. That's just another thing I always think of when talking about name, image, and likeness trends.
I like that. The NCAA should add you to some kind of advisory committee.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, there's pros and cons to it, but I feel like there's a lot more cons to not allowing these kids profiting off of the hard work they put in. And again, I'm not saying should they be instant millionaires? No. Should the colleges be paying them like their faculty? No, they're students. But should they be able to make money on their own while dedicating their lives to these colleges? Absolutely. There. I said it. That is my stance. They should 100% be able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. I've changed my mind. I'm not impartial. I think that they have to. I mean, think about it.
Man, I wish you were some decision maker back in the day when I was a college kid.
Yeah.
On this topic.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of fun talking about this with you, Jaime, and you've had some great points yourself. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this stuff today.
Sure, man.
It's been super fun.
Sure.
I don't mean to cut it short or anything, but we are approaching, our time frame here for today. So, I want to thank you once again for joining me today. But before I let you go, is there any way my audience can find you online?
Well, sure. We have, of course, our website, ysnacademy.com. And going to the website, you'll have tabs there that you'll find to show you and direct you to our movie website. There, you'll learn about the TSPN program. You'll learn about the professional development project that we're planning as well. Of course, the masterclass that we're really excited to introduce the faculty for that. Some names that people are going to be very pleased to see on that list doing those lessons. So YSN Academy, and of course, our social media. And we look forward to hearing from those parents, those high school kids, those school personnel to learn more, and of course contacting me directly. All that information is on the website.
Awesome. All right, everybody who's watching and or listening, make sure to do that. Go out, check out ysnacademy.com. Thanks again, Jaime. I appreciate all the time you've given today.
Man, the pleasure was all mine. It was awesome. I learned a few things from you. It was great to get a team's perspective on all these potential pros and cons for this whole nil concept. And I'm proud of you, man. You're doing a great job, and I think you have a bright future in the sports business.
Thank you. That means the world coming from you. That's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Teen Sports Podcast Network, Illinois. Be sure to follow us at TSPN Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and yes, even Facebook. I'm your host, Andrew Kish. Thanks for tuning in.